For Dr. Ariel Bennett, the Hippocratic oath became a curse the moment Doris Moretti bled all over her clinic floor. She didn't see a monster on that rainy Tuesday. She simply saw a man with a bullet in his side. She stitched him up, saved his life, and, naive to his identity, expected him to disappear. But in Moretti's world, a life debt isn't settled with insurance paperwork. The silence following his departure wasn't relief. It was the calm before the storm. When 3 black SUVs pulled up hours later, the command was absolute. Bring me that woman. This is no fairy tale. This is how a dedicated doctor became the property of Chicago's most dangerous man. The neon sign above St. Jude's Community Clinic flickered with a dying buzz, casting a rhythmic, sickly red light onto the wet pavement of West 18th Street. Inside, Dr. Ariel Bennett rubbed her temples, the smell of antiseptic and stale coffee clinging to her scrubs. It was 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday in Chicago, the hour when the city didn't sleep, but rather held its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. Ariel was 29, buried under 6 figures of medical school debt, and working the graveyard shift in a clinic that was barely more than a glorified first aid station. She wasn't looking for trouble. She was looking for a nap. "Lock the front, would you?" "Janice," Ariel called out to the receptionist, an older woman who was already half asleep behind the glass partition. "Already done, honey. Go home. You look like hell," Janice mumbled. Ariel was reaching for her coat when the sound shattered the quiet. It wasn't a knock. It was the heavy, wet thud of a body slamming against the reinforced glass of the front doors. Then came the frantic pounding. Bam! 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 "Open the door, now!" A voice roared from outside, muffled by the glass, but unmistakably desperate. Ariel froze. Protocol said to call 911. Protocol said to hide. But Ariel saw the smear of crimson trailing down the glass. Her instincts, honed by 3 years in a trauma center before she burned out, kicked in. She unlocked the door. 3 men burst in. The rain lashed in with them, soaking the linoleum instantly. 2 of the men were essentially mountains in suits, thick necks, earpieces, Glocks visibly bulging under their jackets. But they were just the frame for the picture. Between them, supported by his arms over their shoulders, was the 3rd man. He was tall, wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that was ruined by a dark, spreading stain on the left side of his abdomen. His face was pale, glistening with sweat and rain, hair plastered to his forehead, but his eyes, steely, icy grey, were wide open and lucid. "Clear a bed," one of the mountains barked. This was Luca. Ariel would learn his name later, but right now, he was just a man pointing a suppressed pistol at her chest. "No cops, no calls. You fix him, or everyone in this building dies." Janice let out a whimper from behind the desk. "Put the gun away," Ariel said, her voice trembling only slightly. She grabbed a gurney. "Get him on here. Trauma Bay 2. Now." They dragged the man onto the bed. Ariel ripped open his shirt, buttons flying across the floor. It was a gunshot wound, through and through, just above the hip bone. Lucky. But he was losing blood fast. "I need surgical kits, lidocaine, and saline," Ariel ordered, snapping gloves on. She looked at Luca. "If you shoot me, he bleeds out. So either help me put pressure on this, or get out of my light." The injured man on the table let out a low, rough laugh that turned into a cough. He looked at Ariel, really looked at her. Most people saw the gun and panicked. Ariel was looking at the wound. "Do as she says, Luca," the man whispered. His voice was like gravel grinding on glass. For the next 40 minutes, the clinic turned into an operating theatre. Ariel worked with a precision that betrayed her exhaustion. She clamped the bleeder, cleaned the jagged edges of the exit wound, and stitched him up with steady hands. She didn't ask names. She didn't ask who shot him. She knew that in Chicago. Ignorance wasn't just bliss, it was survival. When the final bandage was taped, the man sat up, wincing. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. "You shouldn't move," Ariel said, washing the blood off her hands in the sink. "You've lost a pint, maybe more. You need fluids." "We leave," the man said. He stood up, swaying slightly before Luca caught him. He walked over to Ariel. He towered over her, smelling of rain, iron, and expensive cologne, Santal 33 maybe. He reached out, his hand rough and warm, and tilted her chin up. "You have steady hands, Doctor," he said softly. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, leaving a smear of his own blood on her skin. "And you don't ask questions." "I don't want to know the answers," Ariel replied, holding his gaze. He stared at her for a second too long, as if memorizing the pattern of flecks in her hazel eyes. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills, and dropped them into her scrub pocket. For the inconvenience. They vanished as quickly as they had arrived, leaving Ariel standing in a puddle of water and blood, the neon sign buzzing outside like a warning she had failed to heed. 18 hours later, Ariel was trying to pretend it hadn't happened. She was at her apartment in Wicker Park, a small studio that cost too much and smelled faintly of her neighbor's cat. She had scrubbed the clinic floor with bleach 3 times before leaving. She hadn't told the police. Janice had agreed to keep her mouth shut. Terrified by the look in Luca's eyes, Ariel was sitting on her couch, nursing a lukewarm tea and scrolling through her phone when a news alert popped up. "Breaking gangland, shootout in North Loop leaves. 3 dead. Police suspect. Ricci crime family involvement." Ariel's stomach churned. She swiped the notification away. "Not my business," she told herself. "I'm just a doctor." She needed groceries, putting on a hoodie and jeans. She headed down the stairs to the street. It was dusk, the sky a bruised purple over the skyline. She made it 2 blocks. A black Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows idled at the curb next to her. As she passed, the rear door slid open. "Doctor Bennett," a voice called out. Ariel froze. It wasn't the man from last night. It was Luca. "I'm not interested," Ariel said, clutching her tote bag tighter. She turned to walk the other way. 2 more men stepped out from behind a parked van, blocking her path. They weren't holding guns visibly, but the threat was in their posture. "It wasn't a request," Luca said, stepping out of the Escalade. He looked different in the daylight, older. Tired, but just as dangerous. "The boss needs a checkup." "Go to a hospital," Ariel snapped. "I did my part. I patched him up. Hospitals have paper trails. Hospitals have cops," Luca said. He opened the door wider. "Get in. Ariel, please don't make us make a scene. You have a brother in college in Wisconsin. Right, Toby Nice, kid." The blood drained from Ariel's face. "If you touch him, get in the car." She got in. The interior of the Escalade smelled of leather. The drive was silent. They didn't blindfold her, which somehow made it worse. It meant they didn't care if she knew where she was going, because she wasn't going to be leaving any time soon. They drove north, past the city limits, winding up the driveway of a massive estate in Lake Forest. It was a fortress disguised as a mansion, high stone walls, cameras pivoting on every corner, iron gates that swung open with a groan. Ariel was escorted through the main entrance, past marble floors and oil paintings that probably cost more than her entire medical education. They led her to a library on the second floor. The room was dim, lit by a roaring fire. Sitting in a leather wingback chair, reading a file, was him, Doris Enzo Moretti. He looked better than the night before. He had showered and changed into a fresh black shirt, though he moved stiffly. "You checked my background," Ariel said from the doorway. She was angry now, the fear giving way to adrenaline. "You threatened my brother." Enzo looked up. He closed the file. "I checked your competency. Dr. Bennett. Top of your class at Northwestern. Residency at Mount Sinai. Fired, or rather. Asked to resign for treating a gang member off the books who couldn't pay. You have a bleeding heart." "I have an oath," she countered. Stepping into the room. "Why am I here?" "Because my previous physician," Enzo said, standing up slowly, "was the one who told the Ricci family where I was having dinner last night. He has been relieved of his duties." Ariel shuddered at the implication. "I need a doctor I can trust, or at least one I can control," Enzo continued, walking toward her. He stopped inches away. "You saved me when you didn't have to. That counts for something. I want to go home." "You can't," Enzo said simply. "Not yet. The people who tried to kill me aren't done. If they find out you helped me, you're a target. If I let you go, you're dead within the hour. So I'm a prisoner." "You're a guest under high security," Enzo corrected, "with a job offer. Stay here, be my personal physician, live in the East Wing. In exchange, I pay off your student loans, all of them, and I ensure Toby graduates without a scratch." Ariel stared at him. It was madness. It was kidnapping wrapped in a velvet bow. But looking into his grey eyes, she saw the truth. He wasn't just threatening her. He was stating a fact. She was already in the web. "And if I say no, then you walk out that door," Enzo said, his voice dropping an octave. "And I cannot promise what happens next." Ariel clenched her fists. "Show me the patient." Enzo smirked. "A dangerous, crooked thing. I knew I liked you." Life in the Moretti estate was a study in contradictions. Ariel was given a suite that was larger than her entire apartment building. She had silk sheets, a private bathroom with a jacuzzi, and meals delivered by a chef who specialized in Tuscan cuisine. But the windows didn't open more than 2 inches, and there was always a guard at the end of the hall for the first 3 days. Ariel saw Enzo only for 20 minutes a day to change his dressings and check for infection. He was a difficult patient, impatient, stoic, refusing pain medication because it dulled the senses. "You're tearing the stitches." Ariel scolded him on the 4th day. She was kneeling beside him on the sofa in his study, applying fresh gauze. He had been pacing while on a conference call, shouting in rapid-fire Italian. "It's a scratch," Enzo grunted, hanging up the phone. "It's a bullet hole." "Enzo," she said, using his first name for the first time. She paused, realizing the slip. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "The shipment was compromised. I have rats in the walls, Ariel." "That sounds stressful," she said dryly, taping the bandage. "Stress raises blood pressure, makes you bleed more." He let out a short chuckle. "You have a smart mouth. Most people are terrified to speak to me. I've seen you in your underwear bleeding on a table. The mystique is somewhat compromised." Enzo's eyes darkened, the amusement vanishing. He reached out, his hand wrapping around her wrist. It wasn't painful, but it was firm, a reminder of strength. "Don't get too comfortable," he warned softly. "You see the suit and the house, and you forget what I do." "I haven't forgotten," Ariel said, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You kill people." "I protect my own," he corrected. "There is a difference." He released her wrist. "Dinner tonight, 8 p.m. Dining room. Is that an order?" "It's a request." Ariel attended dinner. She wore a dress she found in the closet, a sleek, navy sheath that fit suspiciously well. The table was set for two. The conversation was stilted at first, but wine loosened the tension. She learned that he played the piano. He learned that she loved classic rock and hated horror movies. For an hour, he wasn't a Mafia don, and she wasn't a hostage. But the illusion shattered with the arrival of a man Ariel hadn't seen before. The doors burst open. A man in a trench coat strode in, followed by Luca. The man was handsome, but in a jagged, cruel way. He had a scar running through his eyebrow. "Stefano," Enzo said, not rising from his chair, but the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "You interrupt my dinner. We have a problem." "Cousin," Stefano said, eyeing Ariel with a predatory grin. "We found the leak, but you're not going to like who it is." Stefano tossed a manila envelope onto the table. It slid across the mahogany and hit Ariel's wine glass. Enzo opened it. His face turned to stone. "Take Dr. Bennett to her room," Enzo commanded, his voice devoid of the warmth it held moments ago. "Enzo," Ariel asked. "Now," he roared, slamming his fist on the table, making the silverware jump. Luca grabbed Ariel's arm. "Come on, Doc. You don't want to see this part." As Ariel was dragged out of the room, she looked back. She saw Enzo pull a gun from a holster beneath the table and verify the chamber. She saw Stefano smiling a smile that promised violence. Back in her room, Ariel paced. She couldn't stay here. The dinner had been a seduction, a way to make her compliant. But the violence downstairs was the reality. She went to the window. It was the second floor. A trellis of ivy ran down the brickwork. It was raining again, slick and dangerous. "I have to try," she thought. She changed into the jeans she arrived in. She tied her hair back. She opened the window as far as it would go, then used a heavy bronze statue to smash the locking mechanism. The noise was loud, but thunder rumbled at the exact same moment. She squeezed through. The rain lashed at her face. She grabbed the ivy. It held. She climbed down, slipping twice, scraping her palms raw. When her feet hit the muddy grass, she didn't wait. She ran toward the perimeter wall, staying in the shadows of the massive oak trees. She knew the gate code. She had seen Luca punch it in. 4921. She reached the keypad. She punched the numbers. The light turned green. Click. The gate began to slide open. Freedom. Going somewhere. Ariel. The voice came from the shadows behind her. Smooth. Dark. Terrifying. She spun around. Enzo was standing there, holding a black umbrella. He wasn't angry. He looked disappointed. And behind him, 2 guards held leashes to Dobermans that were straining against their collars. "I told you," Enzo said, walking into the light of the gate. "It's not safe out there. I'd rather take my chances with the Ricci family than be your pet," Ariel spat, backing away through the open gate. "It's not the Riccis you have to worry about anymore," Enzo said. stepping closer. It's the police. Look. He held up his phone. On the screen was a live news broadcast. Wanted for questioning in the murder of drug trafficker Paolo Rossini. Police are looking for Dr. Ariel Bennett, whose fingerprints were found on a scalpel at the scene. Ariel's knees buckled. What? I didn't. Stefano, Enzo said. He planted it. He wants you out of the picture so he can get to me. If you walk out that gate, the cops pick you up and you go to prison for life, or Stefano's men find you in a holding cell and shank you. He extended his hand. Come back inside. Ariel, I am the only sanctuary you have left. Ariel looked at the open gate, then at the man who had effectively framed her, or allowed her to be framed. She was trapped, truly trapped. She took his hand. It was cold. Good girl, he whispered. Now, bring me that woman, he said to Luca, echoing the command from the first night. And lock her in my wing. The guest room is no longer secure. The east wing was less a living space and more a command center wrapped in velvet. Ariel had been moved into Enzo's primary suite. It was a sprawling room with floor-to-ceiling windows made of bulletproof glass, overlooking the stormy Lake Michigan. There was a king-sized bed with black silk sheets, a mahogany desk cluttered with satellite phones, and a walk-in closet filled with suits that cost more than Ariel's childhood home. You sleep on the couch, Ariel said, crossing her arms. She was still shivering from the rain and the shock of seeing her face on the news. Enzo was pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. This is a 20-year-old Scotch. Drink it. It helps with the shock. I don't want Scotch. I want my life back. Your life, as you knew it, is suspended, Enzo said, walking over and pressing the glass into her hand. Stefano has friends in the CPD. If you go to the police, you don't make it to booking. You hang yourself in a cell. That's the narrative they've already written for you. Ariel took a sip. The alcohol burned pleasantly, settling her nerves. Why is he doing this? He's your cousin. In my world, family is just a word for people who know exactly where to stab you to hit an artery, Enzo replied, taking a heavy swig. He sat on the edge of the bed, wincing as he moved his left side. Ariel's doctor instincts overrode her anger. She set the glass down. Let me check the stitches. You were running. You might have torn them. Enzo hesitated, then unbuttoned his shirt. The bandage was spotted with fresh blood. Sit back, Ariel ordered. She retrieved the medical kit he kept in the bathroom, a high-end trauma bag that suggested this wasn't his first bullet wound. As she worked, peeling back the tape and swabbing the angry red skin with antiseptic, the silence in the room shifted. It wasn't hostile anymore, it was intimate. She could feel the heat radiating off his skin. She could feel the steady, powerful thrum of his pulse under her fingertips. You have a gentle touch, Enzo murmured, watching her face. Don't read into it. I took an oath to do no harm, Ariel said, not meeting his eyes. Even to monsters. Ariel paused, looking up at him. His grey eyes were unguarded for the first time. Are you a monster, Enzo? I do what is necessary. Sometimes that requires monstrous acts. He leaned in closer. But I have never hurt an innocent. And you, Ariel Bennett, are the most innocent thing that has walked into this house in decades. The air between them crackled. He was dangerously close. Ariel could smell the sandalwood and the faint metallic tang of blood. For a second, she thought he might kiss her. Knock. Knock. The heavy oak door swung open. It was Luca, looking breathless. Boss, Stefano is downstairs. He brought the consortium. They want to sit down. Now." Enzo buttoned his shirt rapidly, the pain masking his face. "He moves fast. He wants to see if I'm weak, if I'm dying." He stood up, adjusting his cuffs. Then he looked at Ariel. "You're coming with me." "What? No." Ariel backed away. "He framed me." "Exactly," Enzo said, his voice hardening into steel. "If I hide you, it looks like guilt. It looks like weakness. But if I parade you in front of them, if I claim you, claim me." Enzo walked over, grabbed a black silk robe from the closet, and draped it over her shoulders. "Put this on. Tie it tight. You aren't Doctor Bennett right now. You aren't a hostage." "Then who am I?" Enzo gripped her shoulders. "You are mine, my mistress, my obsession. That is the only reason the consortium will accept for why I am harboring a fugitive. If you are just a doctor, you are a liability they will want to remove. If you are my lover, you are untouchable. Do you understand?" Ariel's mouth went dry. "You want me to pretend. I want you to survive." Enzo cut in. "Play the part. Ariel, your life depends on it." They walked down the grand staircase together. Enzo's hand was on the small of her back, possessive, firm, guiding. In the drawing room, 5 men sat on the leather couches. Stefano was standing by the fireplace, swirling a glass of wine. When Enzo entered, the room went silent. "Enzo." Stefano smiled, his eyes flicking immediately to Ariel. "And the good doctor. I must say, cousin, harboring a wanted cop killer is bold. Even for you." "She didn't kill anyone, Stefano," Enzo said, guiding Ariel to a chair and standing behind her, a hand resting on her shoulder. "And we all know how evidence can be manufactured." An older man with white hair, Don Falcone, spoke up. "The police are swarming the city. Doris, this brings heat on all our operations. Why is she here?" Enzo looked around the room, his gaze terrifyingly calm. "Because she is not just a doctor. She is with me." Falcone raised an eyebrow. "With you. She is under my personal protection," Enzo declared, his fingers tightening slightly on Ariel's shoulder. "She is my companion. Anyone who touches her, touches me. Anyone who hands her to the police declares war on the Moretti family." Stefano's smile faltered. "She's a liability. You're thinking with your careful cousin." Enzo's voice dropped to a whisper that carried across the room. "The next word you speak will determine if you leave this room walking or in a bag." Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, Falcone nodded. "Very well. If she is yours, she is safe. But this heat, it must be handled. The annual gala is tomorrow night. The mayor will be there. The chief of police. You must attend. Doris, show them everything is under control. Bring the girl. If she can charm the chief, perhaps the evidence will disappear." Enzo didn't blink. "We will be there," as the men filed out. Stefano paused at the door. He looked at Ariel, then at Enzo. "She better be worth it. Enzo." Stefano sneered. "Because when a king falls for a pawn, the game is usually over." The Sapphire Gala was the event of the Chicago social season, held in the grand ballroom of the Palmer House Hotel. It was a charity event for at-risk youth, funded ironically by the very organizations putting those youth at risk. Ariel stared at herself in the mirror of the hotel suite. The dress Enzo had provided was a weapon in itself. It was emerald green velvet, strapless, with a slit that ran dangerously high up her thigh. It hugged every curve, demanding attention. A diamond necklace, cold and heavy, rested against her collarbone. "You look." Enzo's voice trailed off from the doorway. She turned. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. He looked devastatingly handsome, but his face was tight with tension. "Like a mobster's girlfriend," Ariel supplied dryly. "Like a queen," Enzo corrected. He walked over and handed her a small clutch. Inside is a burner phone and a small canister of pepper spray. It's not much, but it's something. Stay by my side. Do not talk to the police. Smile at everyone. "Enzo, I'm terrified," she whispered. He took her hand and kissed the knuckles. "I know. But tonight, we end this. I have men moving on Stefano's warehouse tonight while he is distracted at the party. By midnight, the evidence against you will be destroyed, and Stefano will be handled." They took the elevator down. The ballroom was a sea of flashing cameras and expensive perfume. As they entered, heads turned. The whispers started immediately. "That's her. The doctor. Is that Moretti? I thought he was dying." Enzo guided her through the shark tank with practiced ease. He introduced her to the chief of police, a sweating man named O'Malley who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Dr. Bennett," O'Malley stammered. I heard there was a misunderstanding regarding your case." "A terrible misunderstanding." "Chief," Enzo said smoothly, his hand resting on Ariel's waist. "My attorneys are sending over some files tomorrow that clarify the timeline. I'm sure you'll find them illuminating." It was a bribe and a threat wrapped in polite conversation. O'Malley nodded vigorously and excused himself. "You're good at this," Ariel murmured as they moved to the dance floor. The orchestra began a waltz. "I hate it," Enzo said, pulling her close. They danced. For a moment, the world narrowed down to the two of them. Ariel felt the solid warmth of his chest. She realized with a jolt of panic that she felt safe in his arms. She was falling for her captor. Stockholm Syndrome, or something else. "Ariel," Enzo whispered in her ear, "at 11 p.m., I need you to go to the powder room. Stay there for 10 minutes. Luca will meet you." "Why?" "Because that is when the move on Stefano happens. If he gets word, he might try something desperate here. I want you off the floor." "What about you?" "I am the bait." The song ended. Ariel checked her watch. 10:55 p.m. "Go," Enzo said, releasing her. Ariel walked toward the restrooms, her heart pounding. She pushed through the double doors into the marble-tiled ladies' lounge. It was empty. She went to the sink and splashed cold water on her wrists. She checked the time. 10:58 p.m. Suddenly, the door opened. Ariel expected Luca. It wasn't Luca. It was a waiter. He was holding a tray of champagne. He locked the door behind him. "Mister, Stefano sends his regards," the waiter said. He dropped the tray crash and pulled a suppressed pistol from his waistband. Ariel didn't think. She reacted. She grabbed the heavy glass soap dispenser from the counter and hurled it. It struck the man in the shoulder just as he fired. "What?" The bullet shattered the mirror next to Ariel's head. Shards of glass rained down on her. She screamed and dove into a stall, locking it. A flimsy defense. "Come out, doctor," the man said, kicking the stall door. The wood splintered. Ariel scrambled onto the toilet seat, looking for an exit. A vent, no. Then, chaos erupted outside. 3 loud bangs. Not suppressed. Real gunfire. The assassin paused. The door to the restroom was kicked open with a force that cracked the frame. "Ariel, it was Enzo! I'm here!" she screamed. 2 more shots rang out, followed by the thud of a body hitting the floor. Ariel unlocked the stall and stumbled out. The waiter was dead on the floor. Enzo stood over him, a smoking gun in his hand. His tuxedo was ruined, blood was seeping through the white shirt. But not from his old wound. His arm was grazed. He knew. Enzo panted, grabbing Ariel. Stefano knew about the raid. It was a trap. My men. They're gone. We have to go. Now. Where? Ariel cried, her ears ringing. The back exit. Kitchens. Move. They ran. They didn't look like a king and queen anymore. They looked like fugitives. The extraction was messy. They burst out of the hotel kitchens into the alleyway. It was pouring rain again, Chicago's eternal tears. "Where is the car? Where is Luca?" Ariel asked, scanning the alley. A black sedan screeched around the corner. The window rolled down. It wasn't Luca. It was Stefano. He raised a submachine gun. "Get down!" Enzo roared. He tackled Ariel behind a dumpster, just as the alleyway was chewed up by bullets. Sparks flew as rounds hit the brickwork. Enzo returned fire blindly over the dumpster, emptying his clip. The car sped off, Stefano laughing as he peeled away. "He's toying with us," Enzo growled, checking his gun. "Empty. Enzo, your phone," Ariel said. He pulled it out. "No signal. Jammer. He's jamming the block. He wants to hunt us. We need to get off the street," Ariel said. She spotted a beat-up delivery van parked down the alley. The driver was unloading crates, distracted by the gunfire, cowering by the door. Enzo didn't hesitate. He ran to the van, flashed his gun, even though it was empty, and yelled, "Keys!" The driver threw them and ran. Enzo and Ariel jumped in. The van smelled of stale bread and diesel. Enzo gunned the engine, and they roared out of the alley just as another SUV turned the corner behind them. "Hold on," Enzo shouted. He drove like a madman, weaving through traffic, running red lights. He took a sharp left onto Lower Wacker Drive, the underground labyrinth of Chicago streets. He killed the lights. They drove in darkness for 10 minutes, listening to the sirens fade. "I think we lost them," Enzo said, his voice tight with pain. He pulled the van into an abandoned construction site near the shipyards. He killed the engine and slumped against the steering wheel. "Enzo," Ariel reached over. His skin was burning hot. "I'm okay," he lied. "We need to switch cars. This one is too hot." "You're not okay. You're bleeding." "It's just a graze." "Enzo, look at me." He turned. His eyes were glassy. "Stefano. He bought off my security team." "Luca. I don't know if Luca is dead or if he turned." "Focus on us," Ariel said firmly. "Where do we go? We can't go back to the estate. We can't go to my apartment." "I have a safe house," Enzo wheezed. "An old hunting cabin near the Wisconsin border. No electronics, no cameras, just cash and supplies. If we can make it there, we can regroup." "Okay, how do we get there?" "We steal a car that doesn't stand out." An hour later, they were driving a rusted 2015 Ford Taurus they had hot-wired from a long-term parking lot. Ariel drove. Enzo was in the passenger seat, drifting in and out of consciousness. The drive was 2 hours of hell. Ariel kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see black SUVs. But the road was empty. They reached the cabin at 3 a.m. It was deep in the woods, hidden by dense pines. Ariel helped Enzo inside. It was dusty, cold, and smelled of wood smoke. She got him onto a dusty sofa. She found a kerosene lamp and lit it. Supplies, under the floorboard. Door. In the kitchen, Enzo murmured. Ariel found them. A stash of cash, guns, canned food, and a medical kit. She rushed back to Enzo. She cut the tuxedo jacket off him. The graze on his arm was nasty. But the real problem was his old wound. The physical exertion had torn the internal stitches. He was bleeding internally, the bruise spreading across his abdomen like ink. "I don't have the equipment to fix this," Ariel said, tears welling in her eyes. "You need a hospital. You need a transfusion." "No hospital." Enzo grabbed her hand. His grip was weak. "If I go, I die. You do it. You fix it." "I can't. I'm not a surgeon. I'm a GP." "You are the only thing keeping me alive," Enzo said, staring into her eyes. "Do it. Ariel." Ariel took a deep breath. She boiled water on the wood stove. She sterilized a needle. She found a bottle of vodka in the cupboard and forced Enzo to drink half of it. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "I trust you," he whispered. For the second time in a week, Ariel sewed him back together. This time, there was no anesthetic. Enzo groaned, his body seizing with pain, but he didn't scream. He bit down on a leather belt until he passed out. When it was done, Ariel collapsed on the floor beside him, covered in sweat and his blood. She watched his chest rise and fall. He was alive, outside. The storm finally broke. The silence of the woods was absolute. Ariel crawled onto the sofa beside him, seeking warmth. She curled up against his uninjured side. Sometime before dawn, Enzo stirred. His fever had broken. He shifted, wrapping his arm around her. "Ariel," he rasped. "I'm here." "Why didn't you run?" he asked. "In the hotel, in the alley. You could have run." "I don't know," Ariel admitted. She looked up at him in the dim light. "Maybe because I realized the monsters out there are worse than the one in here." Enzo looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath. He reached out and traced the line of her jaw. "I am a bad man, Ariel. I have done terrible things. But from the moment you put your hands on me in that clinic, I knew. Knew what? That you would be my ruin, or my salvation." He leaned down. This time, there was no hesitation. He kissed her. It tasted of vodka, blood, and desperation. Ariel kissed him back, her hands tangling in his hair. It was a kiss of survival, a seal on a pact that could not be broken. They were no longer captor and hostage. They were partners in a war against the world. But as the sun began to rise through the trees, Ariel saw something through the window that made her blood run cold. A drone. Small, silent, hovering just above the tree line. Its red camera light blinked once. Stefano had found them. The drone hovered for 3 seconds, a mechanical vulture with a blinking red eye, before Enzo raised the heavy hunting rifle he'd found under the floorboards. Crack! The shot echoed through the silent pines. The drone exploded into plastic shrapnel and spiraled into the wet leaves. "They know exactly where we are," Enzo said. Racking the bolt, the recoil had made him wince, his hand flying to his bandaged side. "That drone was a spotter. Stefano's kill team is 5 minutes out. Maybe less." Ariel was already moving. The fear that had paralyzed her at the gala was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. She grabbed the medical kit and the small snub-nose revolver they had taken from the dead waiter. "Can we run?" she asked, checking the cylinder. 5 rounds. "Not in my condition," Enzo grunted, leaning heavily against the window frame to peer out. "And not on foot. They'll have thermal scopes. If we run into the woods, we're rabbits. If we stay here, we're cornered rats." "I prefer rats," Ariel said, shoving the gun into her waistband. Rats bite back. Enzo looked at her, a flicker of pride cutting through his pain. Check the back door. Barricade it. I'll take the front. We need to create a fatal funnel. Force them into the open. They worked in a frenzy. Ariel dragged a heavy oak dresser in front of the back entrance, wedging it tight. Enzo overturned the heavy sofa to create a firing position, facing the front door. The silence of the forest returned, heavier than before. Ariel, Enzo said softly. He was reloading the rifle, his movement slower than usual. If they breach, if I go down, you save the last bullet for yourself. Do not let Stefano take you. Do you understand? Ariel walked over to him. She knelt behind the barricade, taking his face in her hands. We aren't dying today. Enzo, you owe me a student loan payment. He managed a weak smile. I owe you everything. Then, the glass shattered. A canister smashed through the front window, skittering across the floor, spewing thick, white smoke. Weggis gas. Enzo coughed, pulling his shirt over his nose. Get low. Gunfire erupted. The front door disintegrated under a hail of automatic fire. Wood chips and glass sprayed the room. Enzo fired blindly into the smoke, the boom of the hunting rifle answering the rat-a-tat of the submachine guns. Flanking! Ariel screamed, pointing to the kitchen window. A shadow moved across the glass. A man was climbing in. Ariel didn't think. She raised the revolver. Her hands shook, but her aim was true. She squeezed the trigger. Bang! The man in the window jerked backward and fell out of sight. I got him, she yelled, shock vibrating through her bones. Reload, Enzo commanded, firing another round. They're rushing us. 3 men in tactical gear burst through the ruined front door. Enzo dropped the first one with a shot to the chest. He cycled the bolt click, jammed. Damn it. Enzo threw the rifle aside and reached for his pistol. The second man raised his weapon. Enzo lunged, tackling him. They crashed into the coffee table. Enzo was fighting on pure adrenaline, his wound tearing open, blood soaking his shirt instantly. He punched the mercenary in the throat, but the third man was aiming at Enzo's back. No! Ariel screamed. She scrambled over the debris, leveling her revolver. She fired twice. 1 bullet went wide into the wall. The second hit the mercenary in the leg. He buckled, his spray of bullets hitting the ceiling. Enzo didn't waste the distraction. He snapped the neck of the man he was wrestling, grabbed the fallen MP5 submachine gun, and turned on the wounded man. A short burst ended the threat. Silence fell again. The room was filled with smoke, blood, and the smell of sulfur. Status, Enzo wheezed, leaning against the wall, his face grey. I'm okay, Ariel said, trembling. She looked at the bodies. Is that all of them? No. A voice boomed from the front yard. Not even close. Stefano walked out of the tree line. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a pristine white trench coat, stepping over the mud as if it were a red carpet. Behind him stood 4 more men, heavily armed. Come out, Enzo! Stefano shouted. Look at you, hiding in a shack like a peasant. Send out the girl, and I'll make it quick for you. Enzo looked at Ariel. He was fading. The blood loss was too severe. There's a trap door, he whispered, pointing to the rug under the dining table. It leads to a storm drain that exits near the creek. Go. I'm not leaving you, Ariel hissed. You have to. I can't walk. Ariel, I'm done. Then we're done together. Ariel stood up. She walked to the window, avoiding the glass. Stefano, she yelled. Ah, the doctor. Stefano laughed. Ready to upgrade your clientele. I have Enzo, she shouted back. He's bleeding out. He's unconscious." Enzo looked at her, confusion clouding his eyes. "Ariel, what are you?" "I'm a doctor," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "I survive. I don't die for lost causes. If I bring him out to you, do I walk away?" Stefano paused. He grinned, a shark smelling blood. "Smart girl, bring him out. You have my word. You walk." "Ariel, don't!" Enzo groaned, trying to stand, but his legs failed him. Ariel turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. Enzo, I have to survive." She grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the door. He was too weak to fight her. She kicked the door open. Stefano's men raised their weapons. "Hold fire," Stefano ordered. "Let her bring the trash out." Ariel dragged Enzo onto the porch. The cold morning air hit them. Stefano stood 10 yards away, flanked by his guards. "Drop him," Stefano commanded. Ariel let Enzo slump to the wooden planks. She stepped back, raising her hands. "Check him." Stefano nodded to one of his guards. The guard approached, kicking Enzo in the ribs. Enzo groaned, but didn't move. "He's done, boss," the guard said. Stefano laughed, walking forward, pulling a gold-plated Desert Eagle from his holster. "Goodbye, cousin. You always were too soft." He aimed at Enzo's head. Ariel's hand dropped to her pocket. Not for a gun, but for the remote trigger she had found in the kitchen supplies, the igniter for the external propane tank used for the grill, which sat right next to the porch stairs where Stefano was standing. She looked Stefano in the eye. "I didn't say I was giving him to you. I said I was bringing him out." Stefano frowned. "What?" Ariel clicked the button. Whoosh! The gas line she had severed earlier ignited. The propane tank didn't just burn, it erupted. A massive fireball engulfed the stairs and the 2 guards nearest to it. The shockwave knocked Ariel and Enzo backward into the cabin doorway. Stefano was thrown into the mud, his coat on fire. He screamed, rolling frantically. "No!" Ariel yelled, grabbing Enzo's MP5 from the floor where he'd dropped it. Enzo, roused by the explosion, found his last reserve of strength. He grabbed the handgun from his belt. Stefano scrambled to his feet, burned and furious. He raised his gun at Ariel. Bang! The shot didn't come from Stefano, and it didn't come from Enzo. It came from the woods. Stefano's head snapped back. He crumpled to the ground, dead before he hit the mud. Silence. Ariel froze. Gun raised. "Who?" From the tree line. A limping figure emerged. One arm was in a sling, his face a mask of bruises and cuts. But he was holding a sniper rifle with one hand. "Luca," Enzo breathed, a smile touching his bloody lips. Luca hobbled into the clearing, followed by a dozen men in dark suits, loyalists. "Sorry I'm late. Boss," Luca rasped, looking at the carnage. Traffic was a bitch. Enzo looked at the burning porch, then at the dead body of his cousin, and finally at Ariel. She was covered in soot, holding a submachine gun, standing over him like a guardian angel of death. He reached out a hand. Ariel took it. She didn't pull him up. She just held on, her legs finally giving out as she sat beside him on the threshold of the ruined cabin. "You blew up my porch," Enzo murmured, squeezing her hand. "Put it on my tab," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. 6 months later, the waiting room of the St. Jude's Community Clinic was new. The peeling wallpaper was gone, replaced by calming pastels. The flickering neon sign had been replaced with a sleek, modern logo. Doctor. Ariel Bennett finished with her last patient, a young boy with a scraped knee. "You're brave, Tommy." She smiled, handing him a lollipop. "Go on now." As the boy ran out, the front door chimed. Ariel didn't look up from her chart. "We're closing. I'm afraid. Come back tomorrow. I have a pain in my heart. Doctor, I think it needs urgent attention." Ariel froze. She looked up. Enzo was leaning against the doorframe. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. He walked without a limp now, though the scar on his side would act up when it rained. "I thought you were in Rome," Ariel said, her heart doing that traitorous flip it always did when she saw him. Business is settled. The consortium is stable." He walked over to her desk. He placed a small velvet box on top of her charts. "What is this?" Ariel asked. "A settlement," Enzo said. "For the kidnapping, the trauma, the blown-up porch." Ariel opened it. It wasn't a ring. It was a key, an ancient, heavy iron key. "The key to the estate," she guessed. "The key to the cage," Enzo corrected. "Or the key to the kingdom, depending on how you view it." He walked around the desk, standing behind her. He placed his hands on her shoulders, leaning down to whisper in her ear. "I promised I would let you go when it was safe. It is safe now. Ariel, you are free. No debts, no threats." Ariel looked at the key. She thought about her apartment, which she hadn't visited in months. She thought about the adrenaline, the fear, and the safety she felt only when she was with him. She closed the box and put it in her pocket. She stood up and turned to face him. She grabbed his tie, pulling him down until their lips were inches apart. "I'm not looking for safe, Enzo," she whispered. "I'm looking for you." Enzo smiled, a genuine, warm smile that never failed to disarm her. "Then bring me that woman," he murmured against her lips. "I'm already here," she replied. And outside, the rain began to fall on Chicago, washing away the blood, leaving only the story of the doctor and the Don, written in the scars they shared. And that is how Dr. Ariel Bennett went from saving a life in a rainy clinic to ruling the Chicago underworld. It's a story about how the line between good and evil isn't always a wall sometimes. It's a door you have to walk through to survive. Enzo Moretti started as her captor, but in the end, he became the only man she could trust. They found love not in the light, but in the shadows where they both had to live. The moral, sometimes destiny doesn't knock. It breaks down your door at 2:00 a.m., bleeding on your floor. Ariel didn't just treat a wound, she healed a broken man, and in return, he gave her a kingdom. But the question remains, would you have pulled the trigger to save the villain, or would you have let him fall? Thank you for listening to this saga. If you enjoyed the twists and turns of Enzo and Oriel's story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What did you think of Oriel's choice in the end? Let me know in the comments below. If you were Oriel, would you have taken the key and left, or stayed with the Mafia boss? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your take. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next dramatic story. We have a new thriller coming next week that involves a billionaire, a secret island, and a stolen identity. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay safe.